Welcome back to the Integrate This podcast. My name is Jeremy Mickle. I'm joined, as always, by David Berner for our Integrate This podcast. Thank you for joining us here today. David and I are excited for the next two parts of our series here on using Canva. Canva is just a fantastic tool. It really makes graphic design, I would say, totally accessible to the novice user and to teachers who are just looking to add a little bit more creativity, add a little bit more flair to the types of things that the great things that you're doing in the classroom. And so for these two parts, part one here, which you're going to see today, David is going to walk us through how to use many of the fantastic features available within Canva. And once you kind of, I think, see some of the things that you're able to do and how easy it is to use these different tools, you're going to start thinking of all sorts of creative and ingenious ways to use them with your students and with your class. Part two, which we will deal with next week then, we'll walk through the integration of Canva into getting your students to use them for assignments and projects and videos and things that you have already kind of designed, and maybe you're just looking to take to the next level. So, David, are you ready to kick it off and show us a little bit about how to use Canva?
Yep, let's go. I'm ready. All right. So what we wanted to kind of do is we want to cover a couple different things. And some of you might not be as familiar, or maybe you haven't used Canva, or you just don't. You've dived into it before, but you haven't visited it for a while. There has been some updates, and I will show one feature in there. There was some limited access to some of the updates that happened. So you may not have one of the things that I'll show today, but as that gets released more widely, Jeremy and I will probably provide an update on some of those things that are added and now accessible by everybody. One of the things that you can see right away here is with the templates. Typically, you're going to start out on your home page when you log in, and you can go to templates to start to generate some ideas. There's so many things on here for pretty much anything that you could ask for. You'll even see like categorically education, right? So you could start here if you want to. You'll see a variety of things, but we'll just do this for now. So we'll just type in presentation and look what kind of template that they have. Because we're just going to approach this in a general sense here. Right. And so let's just grab one of these. We're going to pick at random here.
Doesn't look so random if you keep scrolling through them, though.
Yeah, pick at random, but I had to be selective.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's all in this, but I think mainly it's just when you get into any template that you might use, or really even if you start from scratch, we want to just look at what's available to you on the left-hand side, right? So you have your design here. And honestly, I spend a lot of the time when I'm working with templates or creating something new, I feel like I'm always in the elements part. I have like an idea in my mind, and then I'm always searching through there to find something that fits, or maybe modifying something. A lot of like exchanging pictures. I use the frame feature a ton. So you're gonna find if you just click on it, right, there's a search bar. You can search for things. You can see some searches here that I've had just to find some like representative photos and things like that, like AI robot. Anything that you type in automatically will start to list out these different categories of what's available. So graphics, photos, videos, audio, it's all found there. If you go a little bit further to the right using the arrow, you'll see shapes, frames, mock-ups, charts. You can play around with any of that stuff. What I think is kind of nice about this is the ability to just, edit anything and add anything that you would like to. As I mentioned, one thing that I like to do a lot is add in frames. So let's say for this, let's just change this to artificial intelligence research. And I'm going to just modify the text here a little bit so we're a bit smaller. You can move things around, right? And then let's say we're going to put in Jeremy right here. I'm going to make Jeremy claim this presentation in case it's bad. So one of the things that, like I mentioned, is I like to use Frame a lot. So Frame has a lot of different options for you in terms of shapes. There's so many in here that I don't really find useful because they don't really fit what I like to do. But you might find something useful in here that fits your goal. If we just take a real basic one, I use like the circle one a lot. So let's say we pull in the circle, and then we go and we have the frame in our presentation. And the whole idea behind this is that you're able to then grab a photo and drag it into the frame, and then it kind of sizes it in there for you. So if we go back and let's grab our little robot picture here, what I do is take this and just drag it to there, and you'll see that now it's fit within that frame. You can double click on it to adjust it slightly. It really depends on the dimensions of the photo, but you can, usually drag up and down or left and right. It just kind of depends. You have trouble here, like trying to resize it within the frame. So something that you might just have to play around with a little bit. But this is nice because you can, if you're not double clicked on it and you're just on the frame itself with the picture inside, you can, make it a little bit bigger, something like that. And maybe now we've got, our artificial intelligence research intro slide. So, that's a good place to start. You can start to play around with some of the different elements that are in there. A couple other things that are worth noting: you have shapes in general, so not frames themselves, but shapes. So any shape that you can find, something like that, I typically find is useful for, like, if I want to create a bit of a background on something, I can. So let's say, and we're just going to lock this in place so that when I'm trying to move stuff around, it doesn't continue to move. And we'll lock this one too. I find that's pretty helpful just in terms of when you're trying to work with a lot of different elements on one page. It's useful to lock and unlock things so that you don't start dragging stuff all around together. When we have something like this shape, let's say we wanted to add something to the background of it, right, of my frame picture. You can actually layer each item. So they're stacked and you can layer them in front or behind each other. If I send it to the back, you can see now that it's behind that picture. And you could do something like this if that makes sense for, the design that you're going for. So you could always do something like that. There is, however, when you're working with frames, you still have the ability to do like a line weight. So you can take that off if you would like to, and you could do, something like this, change the weight of it if you want, like that too. So either way, sometimes, like, I've not necessarily done this, but I've done like an offset circle. I can think of like our AI symposium that we're doing. I took a kind of a circular image of Matt Miller, and then I put some circles behind it that were offset just to accentuate or, make it look a little bit different. So there's different purposes for all these things. You could really design it however you want to. But again, around with the shapes, going into some of the graphic things as well. There's tons of stuff in here that I've used. I've used arrows a lot. You could pull in an arrow. Maybe we change the color to black. We're going to flip this so that it's, pointing to that, maybe something like this. You could mess around with that. You could also play around with the transparency. If, something, I tend to use transparency a lot when I have something in the background. So if there's, if I have something like this, I may just flip it and then I'll resize so that it's in the background. This is like a face made out of lines here. So if I go and change this, so I don't necessarily like that, right? But what I might want to do is just bring the transparency down so it's still behind there like that. That's something I play around with a lot for background, because I like backgrounds because it helps fill the space, but then I also don't, the problem is obviously when you add that and you're trying to do like a custom background, it's always going to be in the full 100% transparency setting. So then you have to, reduce that quite a bit so that it just sits in the background but isn't distracting in a way, so that you can kind of add to it. One of the things that I also use a lot is the click here options. So, more particularly if you have, if whatever you're talking about has some sort of link that you want people to go to. Actually, I'm surprised. I've had questions like this before. A lot of people are familiar with how to link text, right? But you have to keep in mind too that you can link images as well, right? So I had this question come up the other day where there was actually someone that was working on Canva and had actually had the text link, but it was like, the really long version of the text for the link in the middle of a design for people to click on. And I said, well, hey, you can actually just put like a button in here and we could grab, whatever link, and then let's just link that so it makes it look a bit more appealing, right? So you don't have like some sort of long link sitting in there. So that's a really good one too that I find useful. I tend to use it a lot.